After your pick and place file is parsed, you need to queue all of the components so that they will be placed in a proper batch and a proper sequence. Here you see that there's a display that tells you how many of your components have been queued. We've queued 0 of the 13 components. When we click on this, we can see that we can have a sequence of batches. We can add as many batches as we need to place all of our parts. For simplicity's sake, we'll start with one batch. A good way to think about this is that you need to put components in specific locations on the printer for it to place them. If you have multiple components in a tape with the same value, you'll probably want to put it in the tape section. If you have larger components, or just one component without a tape to hold it, then you'll likely want to put it in the individual components section. Let's start by putting a component in tape slot 1. And when we click that slot, we get a pop-up that lists all of the parts in our design and how many components can be queued into that slot. We have two 0805 surface mount diodes, so we can queue both of them into that slot 1. I've done that, and now we see that D1 and D3 will be taken from slot 1 on the tapes and placed from there. We can place more components by going to slot 2 of the tape. We have two 0805 LEDs, and we can place those there. You can now see parts D2 and D4 are in tape slot 2. If you want to see what you've already assigned, click on any location to see what's there. If there's nothing there, then this Add Component dialog will pop up telling you it's empty. I've got a couple of different resistors here. Since they have different values, they won't be on the same tape and will need to be placed in either two slots if they are on a tape. I have a lot of single components in this design, so I will probably put all of them in the single component tray. To be clear, you can place a tape with just one component at the top of the tape, or use just one component from the tape even if there are several on the tape. The printer will take whatever it needs. For this example, I'll put my capacitors here in the tape tray and put everything else in the individual components tray. Also, you don't need to put things in a particular order. I know that this edge connector probably won't be placed very well, but I'm still adding it since it's large, in this largest spot here on the individual component tray that will sit to the left of the heat bed. What we're showing you here is that queuing your components should be a very simple and straightforward setup for your parts, and you don't need to maximize the batches. Instead of making one large batch for all of our parts, we've actually found it helpful to do smaller batches so we can make sure that things are performing correctly. And then I'll add another batch of other components. Smaller batches let me adjust things more quickly, and I can then rerun one batch or another batch if needed. Instead of having a whole batch with an error in placement that I have to figure out extensively to see what went wrong, I can do a small test to make sure everything's configured and aligned properly first. If I want, I can do larger batches after that. And we can see here remaining component 0, and I'm ready to move on.